I took the old and new challenge for Altenew's 10th anniversary. This video is the process of using classic Altenew items alongside of new products. See how it turns out. I'm using the classic set painted flowers for my old item in today's challenge, as well as the add-on painted flowers little set. And the newer item is the sketched florals stamp and die set. Just started out with a sturdy piece of watercolor cardstock. I like using green gold as an alternative to black ink or even gray ink for outlines. I love the painted flowers. It was one of the first stamp sets that I purchased from Altenew 10 years ago. I'm stamping the layers of the painted flowers in mid-yellow and oolong tea. I didn't fret too much over the placement of the layers on these blooms. Just wanted to add some color and some depth. Perfect placement is not necessary with this classic set. I used the Marshland fresh dye ink for the solid layer of the leaves. Don't you just love the spinning ability of fresh dye inks? I made sure everything was completely dry, so I used the heat tool. And I re-inked with the green gold to get those outlines nice and crisp. I loved how that turned out. For the new stamp set, I'm using sketched florals, and I'm using cold-pressed watercolor paper for this, using the outlines, once again, stamped in green gold. Then I chose the large blooms and tiny blooms, as well as leaves. Then I stamped the larger blooms both in blush and coral red. Once I inked up the sketched florals, I used the fine mister with clean water and mist that stamp and then re-stamped it. That's the perfect way to get kind of a watercolor look without too much hassle. And then I came back in with green gold and re-stamped the outlines just for nice sharp color of that sketchy look on the blooms. The stamp wheel is the perfect tool to get that precision stamping. I came in with crimson Woodless watercolor pencil to add some extra detail on the petals, as well as some ruby red. I liked how those mixed. For the yellow flowers, I added a little bit of maple yellow and just a kiss of orange cream Woodless watercolor pencils. As a real quick addition of color for the leaves, I used the Limeade Woodless watercolor pencil that I kind of smooshed on there and then added some water to move the color around. And I used the coordinating dies to cut out all the pieces and set those aside. I loved how these turned out. For the sentiment, I'm using Elegant Sayings stamp and die. Now for the background, I had a piece of cardstock that had smooshed some color onto. And for the typography, I stamped several of the words from the Elegant Sayings stamp set in the citronella. Kind of randomly stamped those words throughout the background, again creating some interest for that background. And for the main sentiment, I chose the word cheers, which I stamped in the green gold. I did heat emboss that in clear embossing powder. I die cut the heat embossed cheers with the coordinating die, and then I cut 2 more layers and stacked them up with a tape runner to create a sentiment with a little bit of dimension. Now's the fun part in creating my arrangement with all the floral elements. And I used the Instant Dimension foam tape to add dimension behind my larger blooms and yellow roses from the painted flowers. I love playing around with the tiny little blooms from sketched florals to add pops of color here and there. For the last detail on the finished card, I used paper bag dual tip pen to give more depth to the center of the flowers and a few dots on the leaves and greenery. I also used fresh lemon and citrus burst for the very center of the sketched florals. And I used the coffee break gradient cardstock in the espresso color for just a slim bit of color on the very left-hand side of my card. So I have the painted flowers as old and sketched florals as new, as well as the elegant sayings. And as a final touch, I added tropical forest green enamel dots to complete the card. I enjoy mixing old and new products from Altenew together. It just allows for one-of-a-kind cards that are extra special for sending out. Thank you for spending some time with me today. We'll see you next time. Bye.